by the CDA planning committee, and also by the rest of you in consultation. It was one of those things that was upvoted quite a bit in terms of a topic of conversation for today. Now, unlike other years where we have presented different tools and resources that you can use for communications, we thought it'd be really interesting to hear from other CDAs from multiple boards that have, from less than 1 to more than 5 years experience working with their school staff as a CDA. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this a little bit like a talk and tell, a little bit of an interview style, and we'll hear from different people. But before we dive in, I want us to kind of think about what does communication mean to us? How do we communicate with people? So I'll go ahead and open the chat. We'll use that to type in our answers. And just think about yourself. What is your preferred way to communicate with your colleagues? And put that in the chat. I'm curious to see what kind of answers we're going to get. Active listening. Oh, Katrina, you went straight for like that high level. Email, in person, face-to-face. Through Teams, talking every day, Morse code, of course. That was in The Amazing Race. In person, yeah. Walking down the hallways, face to face. That's funny, there's nobody who likes to telephone people. I'm a phone person, I love talking to people on the phone. Messenger, text, yeah, depends with which colleagues, absolutely. So here's another question for you. When you're at work, whose emails do you open first? And if you say PRT, I won't believe you. Whose emails do you open first? So you have an inbox full of emails. Yeah, Ben's. Teachers, parents, principal, administration, principal. Top to bottom. Oh, I love that, Melanie. She's like, no, whatever comes in, top to bottom, which is what, the latest first? Or the earliest first? How do you have your email set up? Bottom to top, yeah. Order of entry. Project priorities as they come in. Ruby, I'm like Pavlov's dog. As soon as it rings, I look. Oh, so many of us are. That's a great point. Okay. So you open those emails first. Who do you respond to? Are those the same people? And you can write same or different in the chat. Because you may look at them, but who do you answer right away? Yeah, same for most people. Now, tell me why. So you told me whose emails you check first. Why do you look at those first? Why do you answer those emails first? Parents in case of emergency, to build trust based on because they're part of your priorities. Yeah, your boss, good. Want to make sure my activities are not canceled, etc. Yeah, any last minute changes to things. Administration in case there's new information. Yeah. Answering the people with whom the communication is limited. Yeah. Building trust so they know they can count on me. The priorities. Yeah, absolutely. So everybody has their preferred method of communication. They have the priorities, the people who they communicate with. You have this and others have this as well. And as we can see in the chat, it varies. There are as many methods and modes of communication as there are CDAs. So we also see that even within this group, everybody's a little bit different. It depends on the day, the season, the priority, what's happening in your environment. So essentially, what we see is that for a lot of these communications, we're building trust. We're going with priorities. We want to make sure that people feel heard, and that we also want to make sure that the people we are serving get what they need in a timely fashion. So, as a clever CDA once said, we are in the people business. And being in the people business means that we build on relationships. We've heard this throughout, the last 2 days of conferences. You have heard this many times from many of us and even from each other. It's all about building trust, building relationships. So, of course, we are now going to hear from CDAs. And we've asked them some questions. Some of them are similar, some of them are a little bit different. And we want them to share stories and experiences that they've had in communicating with their school teams. So some are going to focus on like this larger, broader perspective of building relationships and communication, and others are going to focus on tips and tricks. We are going to hopefully have some time, if everybody keeps to the schedule, for some Q&A at the end. But if there's any specific questions you want to ask them, put them in the chat and we'll try to bring them in at the end. Okay, we have Ben, who's going to be our gracious timekeeper, and we are going to start off. So keep in mind, if anything sparks an idea, something that you want to try, jot it down. We have our nice little note paper, but of course, you can use the back of the paper you were working on this morning. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna kick it off with an interview with Bobby. Is Bobby in the room? Danielle is going to interview Bobby.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Bobby. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Danielle.
Thanks, Catherine. That was great. It's really great to reflect on that because it's true. I feel that in some ways we're so oversaturated, and yet we're all trying to like find each other in this world of being in different spots. So I'm curious to hear always what's happening in schools, though. Like, what's the reality? Because I feel like a couple of degrees removed from it. And I also like the idea that we're, trying to frame it as, you can send as many emails, you can spam people, you can, stand on a building, send out newsletters, but who's going to really listen to you? And I feel like the undertone of that is always that we have this ongoing conversation, that we have this connection already in place, that we have a relationship. And I think that's really what works more effectively than sending out like 500 newsletters and emails. So what's your sense, Bobby, like in your school? I mean, I know we always have to frame it, what's going on now. We're maybe moving out of this space of pandemic, so maybe we're in the building more. But for your relationship with your principals and staff, what does that look like?
Well, we are definitely in the building more. Although we do have quite a bit of a changeover in terms of staff, but I always do try to make a personal contact with people, especially when it's for the first time, or to follow, or to kind of like start that discussion to let them know what it is that I'm envisioning, or if there's a project that's coming up. So my first intention, my first contact is always in person. And often I do that before I have anything to give. Before there's a project that I need to talk to them about, before there's an initiative that I want them to be involved in. It's always about making that first contact to build that relationship. So I stop by people's offices, I chat with them over lunch, strike up that conversation just to make that initial contact. And then when I go to them with new information or a project or something, there's already a relationship that you start from, and I give them all the information and then follow that up with an email to make sure that this is what we discussed, this is what I'm doing, this is what you're doing, let me know if you have questions. And I always do make myself available to go and touch base again. Were you going to ask me something?
Well, yeah, I was just thinking that, I mean, it kind of reminds me of the idea that like people like to hear about things in the early stages, not just be told later, here it is, and landed on them.
Yeah. And I always kind of take into account, well, I think by necessity, teachers especially, they are so busy. I've been in a classroom, so I know the million details that they need to take care of. They have the disruptive kids, the coded kids, the material they need to cover this term, the parents who are emailing them, what the administration is asking from them. So I can understand that I'm not going to be there to waste their time. They have no interest in anything that they will feel is wasting their time. So I'm very careful in choosing what I put out to teachers. And I try to communicate that to them as efficiently as I can, that this is not, a one-off activity. This actually is linked to your curriculum. You can actually evaluate the end result, or this person who's coming in is actually going to expound or enhance what you've already done. It'll just help your kids see it in a different way. So I'm very cognizant of that, and I'm very respectful of that, so that they can trust that when I do go to them, it's valid and it's worth the time that they're going to commit to it.
Well, it lightens their load, not like burdens them.
Right.
Can you just like tell me about that moment I know it's hard because you're running around, things are getting canceled, like it's pandemic, and I know that's been a lot of chaos for you. Like that's all like the channels of communication, but can you just remind me that story where you tried to set up a cafe with like tablecloths?
Oh, okay. So that was last October, not 21, but 2020, when we had just started school again for the first time after all of us having been isolated for months and months and months. And September was super difficult in the schools. I'm sure everybody knows that. And our teachers were like, it's an awful expression, but they were dropping like flies. You'd see people one day and they were gone the next. So there were always new people in the building. People that you expected to be there were gone. I was having issues, I couldn't get any partners in the building. I couldn't freely go into classrooms even at that point. Anyway, just so many difficulties. And I decided, you know what? I'm having a really hard time. I need something positive. I need some way to connect to the people that I'm seeing every day in a positive way, because we were all grumpy. We were all like, everybody was just losing their minds. And I have established a coffee and muffins that I do for the staff. I usually do it in January during our exam period. And while the teachers are invigilating, they're all running around classrooms, there's one period of the day where they're free. So every January during that exam period, I put out a coffee and muffins in the CLC. I bring in tablecloths from home. I put French cafe music off YouTube up on the screen.
Love that.
I either bake or buy a million muffins. I get coffee, I get tea, and I just welcome them. And I am hostess. I sit down with them and I have like 12 half cups of coffee. So I'm flying for the rest of the day.
Because she's trying to you're sitting with everybody drinking half cups of coffee.
You know what? Yes. And I will get back to anyway, this is something I normally do in January, and it's an established kind of pick me up in the school now. So last October, when everybody was down in the dumps, I said, okay, we're having a first ever after the pandemic coffee and muffins. And it was a way for everybody to reconnect. And it was fun. And I do have a cup of coffee because, again, the half cup with everybody, because you need to keep reconnecting with people. If I'm just hostess, they sit in their cliques and they talk among themselves and they ignore me. If I sit down with them, I can kind of put myself in there and see their reality and they see mine, because we're chatting again. So relationships.
Most importantly though, Bobby, is I know your side gig is making jam. So do they get the jam with the muffins?
No, I keep it simple. No? On that day, they come in. Actually, what we did do for a new thing this year, before we went off Christmas, is we had a coffee, muffins, and artisan Christmas fair sort of thing. And a couple of us who are artisans in the building did have our things for sale. I had the jams, we had somebody with candles and hot sauces and whatever. So the teachers could come in, sit down to have their coffee and muffin, but they were also free to shop for Christmas gifts. And it kind of gave a different vibe. There was a little bit more excitement as people were kind of winding down from, you know, this half year going home, but also looking forward to, oh, Christmas is coming, you know, gifts. Oh, look at that. And then they also get to know who the artisans are on staff. You make this, you know, it's another relationship.
Yeah, there's nothing like something like artisanal as a gift.
Yeah.
I love that kind of
but
localness to
it
it.
creates more links.
Yeah.
So
we gotta call it here, Bobby.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. But everyone loves it. I hope you can see the chat. Everyone loving it. Awesome. Catherine, remind me what's next.
Yeah, well, before we go on to our next guest, Bobby, remind us how many years you have been a CDA and how many years you've been working with your current school staff.
And how long you've been making jam.
Okay, I've been at Laurier McDonald High School for 7 years now. Before that, I spent 3 years building the CLC over at Gerald McShane Elementary. So
okay,
3
so
plus 7.
Yeah, thank you. Just a little bit of context. We're going to be asking everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
We have a big group that's hitting 10 years next year. So all our phase 3s are 10 years next year.
Okay.
So exciting. Okay, so let's call up Mary.
Thank you, Bobby.
To the
Thank
hot
you very much.
seat.
Mary.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hi. Oh, we're getting some feedback, Mary.
Yes, I'm surrounded by a bunch of troublemakers here at NFSB, so we'll see
Okay.
if I can scoot over. Okay.
Here's a tip. You guys, if you're in the same room, you'll need to, everybody who is not Mary needs to make sure their mics are off and actually turn the sound off on your computers or plug in with headsets. That should take care of the feedback.
Perfect.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, we hear you straight now.
Okay. Super.
Mary, thank you for being here. Tell us, how long have you been a CDA?
Okay.
And how long have you worked with your current schools? And tell us which schools where you are.
Okay, so I'm working with the New Frontiers School Board. I've only been a CDA for under 2 years. However, before that, I worked at another high school in our board for 15 years. I'm now, my main hub school is the other school out in the valley at a rural high school, 3 days a week, 1 day at an elementary and 1 day at an adult ed center.
Okay, so you have quite a few schools and different school staff that you communicate with.
Yes.
So how do you typically communicate with school staff? Like what's worked well for you?
It's different at each school, honestly. The high school is being my main hub. It's the busiest. So it's a matter of trying to see when my principal is available. I'm on my second principal in 2 years also. So we changed admin staff. So are they more available in the morning? Are they more available after school? I try to observe that, adapt to it, and then very importantly, I organize my things before I go and see them. By the time I get to see them, sometimes I have 5 things for them to sign and various things to do. So I get myself organized and add to the pile until I'm able to get in and see them. My other schools, I'm able to meet face-to-face very easily with the principal usually. The elementary is a little more calm and she'll pop in to see me and we'll catch up. Adult Ed Center is another tough one to get in touch with because he has 2 centers. So a lot of times he's not there and so he prefers email. So that's how I work with him.
Yeah, that's great. So you told me about a specific tool for communication that you kind of piggyback on that
Yes.
principals use. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I think you're referring to at the high school, each teacher has a busy schedule during the day. So at the beginning of the year, I always go and get a copy of the teacher's schedules after their classes have settled. So then I know when their spares are, when I'm not interrupting the class to go talk to them about a project. I have their room number right there in the schedule because they flipped around at our school during COVID and the students stayed in one place and the teachers were rotating. So that solved a lot of location issues. I always get the school schedule at my elementary, so I know when recess is and when the teachers will be in the staff room and so forth. So those I found very helpful. It kind of gives me a strategy to go in and talk.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Getting the teacher's schedules. I had actually never thought of that. So I think that's a pretty good one. And looking at getting the information out. So when you need to get information out to multiple people, you told me
Yes.
about a newsletter. What is that about?
Well, that came in handy because my first year I had a lot of trouble connecting with teachers. Not only was I new, they were with COVID and just overwhelmed and didn't really want to hear much. And I knew I had to back off. But with the new administration this year, they developed a weekly newsletter that they put together. They asked us to submit everything by Friday. They put it together on the weekend, send it to staff on Sunday night. So for example, the I Belong project, I put it in there, a brief announcement with a link, a little bit of what it's about. And so the teachers who were interested in that could just click on, and we did get 2 teachers who got involved in that. Same with other grants that come up or other projects. I'll just put in a quick description, as succinct and like complete as possible, and give them the link. And that's worked really well this year. We've been really busy with that. So
That sounds great. Okay, so we have 1 minute left. So what I really would be interested in getting getting you to share with others is, you talked about rejection, and I thought that was really interesting because it's one of those things that we don't often talk about. So what's your stance on rejection, and how do you approach that?
well, I mean, nobody likes rejection, but I think I'm lucky in the fact that I did have 3 schools. And so of course it's going to be slow getting in for anybody who's new. But one school I have was good and they caught on. That was the high school. Another one was super friendly adult ed. And then the elementary was a completely different story. Very cold for a reason. I think they were PTSD, to be honest, because it wasn't just me. It was a new principal and she got the same treatment. They're like, we're good, we're independent, we can run ourselves, leave us alone. And so we did. We sort of took a step back. They had space issues as well. So eventually I was even moved to another school, but I did keep in touch with them and sent them projects to the principal, who then decided what her staff, she knew the staff better, decided what to share and what not to share and just hold off on. And that's how we did that. Now I'm hoping gradually to get back into the school next year, but we're going to have some projects that we have ready. We have a good relationship with the gym teacher there, so we always go after the sports grants. Mm-hmm. So it's just, you know, slowly, baby steps. And if you have to take a step back, don't take it personally. There's a lot of people going through a lot of things, and a dynamic sometimes, just wonderful people. When they get together, things don't go so well at one school, a different school that I worked at. You just have to let it go and do what you can, I think.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful statement to end on. Thank you so much for bringing that up as a topic. I think it's an important message for all of us to hear. Thanks so much, Mary.
Thank you.
All right, let's bring this morning's host to the hot seat, Lisa.
Hi.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for joining us again. Okay, so start with the easy questions. How long have you been a CDA, and how long have you worked with your CLC schools?
So I think it's been 7 years. I started off with the elementary school. Then 3 years ago, they added on the high school, and 2 years ago, they added on the adult ed. So I have 3 schools now.
And so, you know, you've had different years of experience with each one of these schools. So how do you typically communicate with the school staff in these different schools? What's worked really well for you?
Well, in the beginning, I started off doing everything in person, and I still try to meet with my staff in person when I can. But like having 3 schools now, and now that they know me really well, I mostly communicate through email. And but like it's different for every school. My high school, I'm more physically there because my office is there, and it's a smaller school, so staff have a tendency to just like pop in whenever they need something or they want to ask something. So it's still a lot in person, but I'll just send an email out after to confirm everything. My elementary school, I try to be there as much as I can also, but they're a much larger staff. So often I'll send something when I have a project or something. I'll just send out like a group email, or I'll message in the Facebook group, and then teachers that want to participate, they'll just come like respond back. And now that they know me and the trust is there, well, I'll get like very good response that way.
So I want to pick up on what you just said. You talked about Facebook groups and Facebook as a communication strategy. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because you're doing some really interesting and innovative stuff with that.
Yeah, well, I have a Facebook group with each school now. So if there's something that I want to pop out a little bit more, or I need a really quick response to something, I'll write it there, because staff are very they're on Facebook a lot. So with one school, it's a messenger group. With the other school, it's a Facebook group. And yeah, it's working really well. We've had that for 2 years now, and it's working well.
That sounds marvelous. I mean, if they're on there anyway, that sounds great. If you think specifically about the roles of administration, principals, VPs, what role do they play in helping you communicate with staff?
Well, secretaries are my best friend. I keep a very close relationship with my secretaries in all schools, because they'll send out I'll send them an email, they'll share it to families, they'll send home documents, like they'll do all the printing and send everything home. So they do a lot of things, and I replace a lot the secretary at my elementary school, so I know how much she does in a day, because I only do a little part of it when I'm there. And principals, my principals, usually what they'll do is, if I send out something, usually they'll respond back saying, this is a really great project, you should participate, or they'll kind of validate when I'm sending out, or they'll say, please respond to this quickly. So often they'll do that to kind of get teachers to participate, or to answer more quickly.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Getting that, that extra validation from the school principal probably goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, last minute. Thank you, Ben. You're doing great with the prompts. So in our last wrap up minute, if I can get you to talk about two things, you also mentioned something about a school board wide Facebook group. And I thought that was really interesting. And then I'm just asking you from now. I know it's two questions in one, bad Catherine. But I also want to give you a chance to give any final tips or tricks that you want to share with other CDAs.
Okay, well, yeah, the Facebook group, the school board Facebook group is new. So I can't really say, is it going to work or not? I don't really have any feedback, but it's something that we came up with in one of our meetings, and we're just trying it out. But what we're hoping is that maybe teachers will get ideas or buy off of other schools, other things going on. So that's what we're hoping to do with that. But I'll have more feedback maybe in a couple months.
Yeah.
For tips and tricks, I would say one thing that I've started this year with my elementary school is that teachers are very busy, and sometimes, like, even if I send out like an email, I have something going on, and I'll send out an email with all the information saying this is happening this day, this time. Sometimes teachers will still come back to me a few times and say, when is this going on? When is this happening? So I've started this year posting monthly in the staff room on their board where they put all their important stuff. I'll post everything that's going on, the activities, if they're having a workshop in their classroom, or what time it is, what date. And it's really helped. I haven't got any emails back lately saying what's going on, what's happening, what time is this. So that's really worked for me this year. And with emails also, when I send out something, I try to send out one email per subject. I try to really make my subject clear and make it short and sweet, because if I put too many things in there, well, and I'm guilty of this too. I kind of read it fast and I don't see everything. I don't get all the information. So I do the same thing for my staff or even partners, or I'll send out as short as I can and point form even if I have to, and make it as clear as possible.
Great tips. Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing your experience, the things that have worked, and then these innovative kind of projects. And we look forward to hearing how that school board wide Facebook group is going to go. So thank you so much. So I'll invite Danielle back to bring our next guest.
Hello. So Ed, you're up. Wake up. So Ed, can you tell us where you're at, what school you're working with now these days, and how long you've been at CDA for everyone who doesn't know?
Yeah, I'm in Quebec City and at Quebec High School, and I've been at this since the beginning, the early days. So that's what, 14, 15 years ago. I was with the first round of CDAs.
So I'm thinking that what I'd love to hear from you is your epic wins and your epic fails. I know that sometimes we kind of have to get creative with communications. And I'm just wondering, what's your wildest idea that actually worked and ones that you tried and you said, I'm not doing that one again? Did you have something like that?
Epic win. We did a great 3-school project one time, and it because we, as many are you know, we don't have a lot of visible minorities in a lot of our English schools because of that Bill 101. We don't get a lot of immigrants. So the school board tasked me to do some sort of an event. So really quick, we came up with the leadership class, the cultural caravan. We have at our adult center, we had about 25 different nationalities there because that's the first time where immigrants can go into that type of learning, English learning. So we took 5 kids from 5 different countries, created passports for the kids at school. We went and invaded a elementary school, and each one of the kids that we chose from the different countries from the adult education center, Rwanda, Afghanistan, Venezuela, then there was 2 other, Congo, and there was one other one. Anyway, they presented their country. There was about a 45-minute presentation, and the kids at the elementary school just cycled through. And we finished up with a huge dance festival with a Congolese dance troupe in the gym where everybody was going wild. CBC was there, so it was just that was a mission accomplished for us.
And how did you work with the staff to get this project going? Like, what was your communication channels?
I just basically in each school had one champion teacher who, you know, obviously for the principal who has this adult center with all these kids there. You know, most of them, they just go, they learn, they leave. There's not, you know, it's just the way it is with general education with a lot of these immigrants trying to just get their schooling done here in Quebec. So she was wide open. She gave me carte blanche. She was the one principal because of her nature. She hadn't worked with me before. She was sort of scared because she wasn't like always up to speed on things. So she called my principal and said, "Hey, Warren, I don't know, is this going to happen? What's happening?" And he just had to explain to her, "Listen, let Ed be Ed, and he's getting things done. Don't worry. You'll see on game day, it's all going to come together. It's just that he's got his wheels going too fast. That you know, he doesn't have to update you all the time, and you don't want to be updated all the time.
Right.
Otherwise, it's going to be." So he explained that to her. So that's one principle, sharing with another principal how to, you know, let go of the reins of some things so that
so you have the trust of the principal. And how do you communicate with the school staff in general? Are you like a comms person? Do you have like a toolkit?
Well, yeah, I do all the communication for the school. I take care of the website. I do all promotion type materials. I'm in the process of doing posters for the 2 big events coming up. So most of the time it's through Teams or in the hallways. I'm pretty omnipresent at the school, so I have access to everybody, and I know when not to bother people. So I think that's a key too. I think a couple of people talked about it. You know, knowing when to press the pedal and when to back off and let them go. But I mean, I'm in constant contact with most of the people here.
Yeah, my sense is you're the kind of person who walks down the hall and talks to every single person. Probably takes like an hour to get from one end to the other.
Yeah, it becomes problematic sometimes because you'd rather do that than do the work you're supposed to do, but it's good to me. And I think that's the key to the success of Warren as our principal. When when a new crop of kids comes in by December, we pretty well know all the kids' names, first names. And so they get a feeling that, the admin walking down the hall knows who they are. They're not just another body.
But are you sending out emails? Are you texting people? Are you calling people? You're just saying hi in the halls?
Yeah, a little bit of both. One of the things I like to do, maybe I can just maybe a takeaway point for some people is, even the other night we had like 800 people at the Palais Montcalm for a big arts event for our school board, which we hosted and we helped plan a big part of it. And during the acts, here's a teacher with their kids on stage and all that. And even during the act, I was like, at the end of that, everybody's clapping. I'm sending off a message, a little encouragement message. Wow, you kids did great. It was amazing. And so, they see, oh my gosh, I just finished watching your person play, or I just finished this event or that event. I think that's neat to communicate the success, or at least gratitude towards the teachers, because then they know, man, like right away I got something. Did it go well? I don't know. But here's a message from the CDA. That, hey, this guy, he really appreciated it. So if Ed liked it, other people must have liked it,
Yeah, so my sense is kindness goes a long way.
Yeah, it's actually, it's funny because around our school we have five posters all over the school, just randomly placed around the school about our code of ethics, and kindness, respect. What are the other three? Oh my goodness, gratitude. Oh man, anyway.
Yeah, gratitude's a good one. Yeah, so in a way, it's like modeling those relationships for the students in the building.
Yeah.
And are you a social media aficionado?
Yep, pretty well. Yeah, it helps to have a son-in-law who makes, well, just, it's kind of weird, but he spends, 6 digits a month on social media ads. So it's kind of nice when I phone him up and say, I have an event and I need this to reach as many people as possible. We have a community book sale coming up. So he'll drop Facebook ads on the Facebook page of everybody in Quebec City. And we get people and we ask them when they come in, how'd you learn about us? Well, I was driving by on the bus and I got a pop-up, said there's a book sale in the area. So I jumped off the bus and came in. So yeah, I have learned. And that's one of the good things about the principal, is that he has allowed me to learn different tools to increase my capacity to do my job. Stuff like the Photoshops and the InDesign and all the other, film editing and stuff like that. He gives me time to do that because he knows it's important for the school. I probably saved the school probably about $4,000 or $5,000, or the school board $4,000 or $5,000 a year just on graphic arts that I do that they don't have to do.
So yeah, I was going to ask about that. For the magazine and the videos, is that all tied to the alumni work you do? And can you tell us about that?
Well, that was another thing too. I went to the alumni because I had this new skill set. Said, hey, I can turn this into many people have seen it, but the Blue and Gold. It's a magazine. Anyway, but for us it's important because I increased my capacity. They have a better product instead of a little newsletter with a staple in the left that they used to send out with some black and white photos. And that's for those of you that heard me talk before, you understand this, but you've heard me say this, and that's important for the principal. It's important for the alumni president, because every time we send that out, we're about to send one out in a couple of weeks. The return on that effort is about anywhere sometimes between $75,000 and $100,000 in money coming back to the school in donations from our past students.
Yeah, so I agree that it's really important to feature the stories of your school and kind of give the gratitude out there. And I think that's part of the relationship building, is that kind of follow up of like this, displaying it in a nice way with the photos and everything. So thank you, Ed. We're going to move on to our last guest before we run out of time today. Thanks, Ed. Brian, are you ready?
Ready as ever. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour.
Yeah, you're a media star. You're used to this.
Oh, wow.
You know how it rolls. So, Brian, I really appreciated like the connection we had about your relationship building with your staff and your principal. Can you tell us about that?
Well, just to let you know, this is my 10th year as a CDA. I originally came over from about 17 years in health services in 2013. And for about 8-9 years, I was with the Richelieu Valley Community Learning Center where we regionalized it. But last year I got to come to the South Shore of Montreal, 4 elementaries, 1 high school, and we made Montérégie Center CLCs. So yeah, no, that's so it was the first year, and it was interesting because it was kind of like starting over, like that song by John Lennon. And in terms of meeting new principals, new staff, I can tell you that the principal's role, I think, has been so important. They're the gatekeepers. They're the captain of the ship. So I want to always deal with them efficiently. I want to respond to them the same day, sensitively, and I want to have respect for their authority in the school. But I also, how can we unite to have this collaborative, positive energy? If the principal and I can be in sync, then hopefully that can shine through for the teachers and the staff. And if I can just share, there was one of the principals this year at the beginning in the fall, and this was the first time I had seen it as a CDA, but I thought it was so cool. He invited me in person. I went in for a cycle 1 meeting with the cycle 1 staff. Another day I went in for a cycle 2, and him and I sat down and we shared, hey, how we've collaborated in CLC before, what can we do? And I was able to meet the teachers, take down their names, and what kind of needs, what kind of community connections or projects would you like? I thought that was really cool. Another one I had 2 schools that asked me to be on their governing board. And what I thought was really cool is, right there, when we do our journals, our OMR, it's, does the governing board receive it? Well, here being asked to go on 2 governing boards, and one of the parents, because you have staff rep, parents, administrators, one of the parents says, could you put the information, you give us a little CLC report every meeting, could you put it in a kind of a new, some kind of a document? So now what I do for each of these, I'll go onto my Facebook pages for each of the schools. I just take some of the main activities we did the previous month. If there's a thing like learn tutoring, for your students, or if there's an anxiety presentation, I'll put a few different things, some community things, some CLC things we did, and I'll send that to all the governing board members. So that's a nice visibility, a nice communication. And I'm trying to think, I had another school where, at the beginning of the year, they invited me twice to be on a virtual meeting. And so me and the VP were able to, in the agenda, it's okay, I'm going to come in here and what can I talk about? Well, it was the Indigenous Josie, but, being invited to their staff meeting, being a part of their team, that I found, those were examples of, it was very positive and helpful.
One of the things I've been struck by, having known you for probably about 5 years, is your responsiveness. And I think you've really sustained that, even in your new relationships, your new setting this year. How do you do it, Brian? Like, you're so on top of that.
For me, with principals, to me, it's like, it's your reputation. As a CDA, as a person, no matter what company you work for, you have a reputation. So, and if you give, when a principal contacts me, and the way we do it is we meet in August, beginning of the year, we'll have a coffee, and then we exchange texts. We don't abuse the text, but if a principal texts me this morning, I respond right away, say, hey, got your message, let me explore it, I'll come back to you. There's something about being acknowledged. There's something about efficiency, and that also connects with respect. Teachers, I try to respond to them the same day. It's not every day you get a teacher. When you're new at schools or you have turnover of staff, as someone said before, reply to that teacher. And, thank you, Martin, for your email. If the teacher speaks to me in French, I'll write it in French, because I'm trying to build those relationships, not just for one-off projects, but hopefully for a durable relationship, so that in a year from now, we feel like we're friends and we can work together again. So efficient. If you're a little stressed and you're not in a good place, wait till the next day before you send the communication. But yeah, and what impression do you leave each person reaching out to you? If you say, no, I can't do that, that's not, versus let me explore it for you and I'll come back to you. I was offering an Environment Canada presentation, and a VP said, this teacher in the high school the teacher, instead of coming back to book, said, can they talk about fair trade? Now, my inner voice was like, oh, it's not the same topic, climate. But I said, let me explore it to you and I'll come back. In doing my research, I found out Fair Trade Canada, connected with 3 partners in Quebec, came back to that teacher, say, hey, we can offer you 2 workshops. Caught the fish.
The other thing I'm struck by, Brian, is I feel like that your work in the health sector really brings into your work that you understand sustaining your own health and, monitoring the health of others. So in terms of like, you're talking about like when you talk to someone, your body language, that you're kind of, do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, for 100%. Before the question by Catherine was, what tools do you use for communication? Two of the tools that I use is looking at someone's body language, being aware of my body language, and feeling the energy. I can feel energy from someone's text if they've got attitude. I can feel energy when I'm in a room and see if that principal looks really stressed, or we're supposed to have a meeting, but they're having a rock and roll day. So using that, being aware of that, I think it's really important. And then also being aware of your own mental and physical well-being, and knowing how to take care of ourselves. So yesterday I had 6 hours of virtual meetings, and I need to go out and walk around for half an hour and rest my mind, or looking at my screen time on my own device and saying, you know what, I need to put this away and be more present for my wife, or just less tech time.
Yeah, sure. Definitely being unplugged is really key to good health after long days. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate you letting us know.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Catherine, what's next?
Okay, so we've heard from many CDAs, and what we'd like to give you an opportunity to do is, of course, communications, as we said, it's very broad. We've heard from like kind of macro level to really like micro level tools and resources. So let's generate a list of the different resources and tools that you use. We'll crowdsource from the room. You can put it in chat. So in some of our conversations with CDAs before this, some of them mentioned different newsletter applications, or there's the Canva, PictoChart. Someone mentioned S'more, and I think that's a newsletter thing. There's Miro, which I think is with the Microsoft kind of family. So yeah, Canva is used quite a bit. We've seen examples from the Eastern Township School Board. The CDAs use that quite a bit. There's Sway, which I think, Anthony, are you going to be talking about that later? Yeah, he's nodding his head. So
will do.
Perfect. So these are different tools, and you can just put them in the chat, and it'll be something that you can take away with you. You'll be able to make a copy of the chat. And while you do that, I did want to share, there was one very specific question that came from a member of the planning committee. And, they were asking, like, it's all fine and great, but we want to know how to, what's the best way to send a pitch through an email? So whether you want to send the email first to share the information, or whether you've had a conversation with your school staff and you want to do a follow-up. The internet says, I'll share what I found on the internet, and something that I found has worked pretty well in the past. And these are just some general tips. Oh, hold on. I'm not even sure what I was sharing there. You may have seen way too much of my computer. Hold on, here we go. It should be. Nope. Sorry, guys. I'm sharing the wrong portion. It'll work eventually, I promise. See, even experts in Zoom, quote unquote, need some time. Okay, so we're gonna do it this way. How to write an email pitch. And we heard some of these tips. Write an engaging subject line. We've all heard the term clickbait, but you don't want to do that. But you do want to let people know, if they're getting an email from you, what is in that email. So be clear. I typically put, please respond, need a response, or something. Yeah, Brian's laughing, something to that effect. I'm sure you've seen one of these from me in the past. And there are these, mass communication, but when you're following up with someone, when you've identified somebody that you want to invite to do a project or collaborate with you, greet them by their name, personalize your message. Include a value proposition. I like this one. I'm like, what would that mean in our world? Well, how does this actually enhance the role of the teacher or the life of the student? How does it link to the curriculum or the current, competencies that the teachers are working on? What are the benefits to the students? Oftentimes, teachers are more likely to say yes if they see a clear relevance and benefit to the students and a relevance to their course curriculum, of course. I love this one. Include a call to action. So if someone's reading your email pitch and they're like, but what do you want me to do? Like, do I click here? Do I sign up? Do I meet you? What is the call to action, often referred to as the CTA? Keep your pitch brief. Lisa talked about, both of these, the subject line and being clear and concise in your message. If there's a lot of information to share, put it lower in the email. If someone's interested, once they read those, 3 to 5 lines, they'll scroll down, or if there's an attachment. Use an eye-catching image or photo or poster, but keep it simple. So if you say you're, trying to get someone to do the I Belong project, is there a link to a video where they can actually see what this looks like? Is there a photo from a Goodnight Bag project that somebody in your school board or another school board has done? You can definitely reach out to PRT when it comes to the Learn projects, but otherwise, if you've done a project in another school or with another teacher, see if there's something you can add there. Back up your claims. Also, see above. It works when you can tell people that this has been done before, especially for things that you're trying to expand. And send a follow-up email or follow up in person. So there is a follow-up aspect. So this is what we found. This is how we've been able to translate it. And, we're happy to share this with you if you find it relevant. And you can also do this in person, of course. These are the steps. So they're very universal steps that you can follow. Right. Okay. And here we go. So before we leave, are there any questions? I see the chat is kind of going, but as I was talking, obviously I couldn't look at it. Is there anything, Danielle, that we want to bring up from the chat, or any questions? If you have any questions for us or for any of your presenters, or some questions, if you have questions, specific ones that we didn't address in this session, you can also put them in chat. We are happy to do as many, open up the space for as many conversations as needed on these topics.
I think from the chat, I can just see people applying their own way. I think you got to kind of test the waters and see what works.
Yeah, I like the one that was this last one. Positive energy and a smile. Absolutely, that goes a long way.
Oh, because Julie was just telling the example of putting up designs in the staff room. And
yeah.
Emmy was talking about using the screen saver in the staff room so that when teachers are walking past, they can see stuff too.
That's a great idea. Ooh, I like that. It's wonderful.
I found Ed's approach was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say a few words, Ed, but sending an email, recognizing, appreciating a teacher. I thought that was quite, it was creative. It's something I got to take into consideration.
Yeah, so Ed was describing how for new teachers, he sends out emails.
I would say that's really important because often they're trying to find their way in the school too, right? And they don't know anybody, just the same, especially if you're new coming in. So that's a really great way to get maybe some buy-in from some of these new folks who maybe you have had difficulty reaching some of the more veteran teachers in your school, but reaching out to the newbies is always a good way to, that's a great idea.
Oh, okay, so there's also a message about keeping it professional. So things like emojis or, any kind of not gratuitous imagery, right? Like keeping things to the point and succinct. I see some people really like that, others not so much, but that's okay. It's all about experimentation. And as Mary said, if there's rejection or failure or something doesn't work, we're gonna keep saying this. The things that don't work are just as valuable as the things that do. When things don't go right, it tells you, it's data. It tells you more about where you want to go next. So don't be afraid to try new things. If something doesn't work, ease off the pedal, as Ed said, and try something different, try something new. Okay, so thank you so much to all of our CDA presenters and for everyone who is participating in the chat. You all are a wealth of knowledge. I love these expressions. It's so fun to see everyone in gallery view.